Welcome to Lunar Crush Live. How are you doing, Norman?
I'm doing pretty good, John. I'm pretty excited to share with everyone some of the new features and aspects of Lunar Crush that we just launched today so that everyone can kind of get an idea.
Yeah,
So
and
doing good.
to have such great guests today with our friends over at Zilliqa. We've
Yeah.
got the brand new CMO Art Malkov and Chief of Staff
Yeah.
Matt Dyer. They're going to join us. We'll talk about where Zilliqa's at, the future, so much more. I'll just say we thought we'd do something a little fun today. So get your questions ready. Anything you've got for Zilliqa. If your question gets answered, we're going to give you, well, not everyone, you can win a care package, a Lunar Crush care package, which includes a shirt, a fanny pack, and some other fun stuff, or level 4 access. So we'll give out one care package and we'll give out level 4 access, which is 500 Lunar each to 2 lucky individuals. So again, if your question gets answered, I also want to say we have a disclaimer. We do have a relationship with Zilliqa because we built Lunar on top of Zilliqa's blockchain, but we do not take payment for our live streams. We bring on fun and hardworking projects, people that have dedicated their lives to this industry, and I can tell you these guys certainly have. They've had a lot of really interesting stories I'm sure they'll share. And so again, please ask questions, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And before we get started, I think what I actually would love to share is our brand new market section in Coin Detail page. So give me a moment and let me share my screen here, see if I can get this to work. It might hiccup for just a second, and I'm going to share that with you. How's that? Can you see that?
Here we go.
Cool. So so I'm on our dashboard. I'm just going to click markets, and on the market section, we actually launched this about 2 hours ago. So you can see we've got our global metrics here with what's going on, and we've got all the top coins. This is by our alt rank. We've got it sorted by that. Interesting, the XCAD network is up there too, which is also a Zilliqa project. So I'm sure we'll talk about that. I'm just going to sort this by my watch list, and I'm going to go look at Zilliqa. And I'm going to point out some of the insights. So there's some things that have been firing off our insights here. We could see that social dominance just hit pretty high 41 hours ago. So it's pretty much 381% above the 7-day average. We've also got social mentions, which also fired pretty high over the last week here. And interesting, the market dominance. So we had some interesting movement here with market activity. This was 29 days ago, so there's a huge move. This was, I think, just before the metaverse announcement and everything there. But let's look at some other things too. Like when you've got like social mentions, we're seeing like up 90.7% over the last 3 months. So that's pretty interesting. There's some good activity going there, and then the engagement's up 92%, which would be within those social mentions of Zilliqa. The engagement is deep. It's deepening. So there's more people talking within the posts that are related to Zilliqa. And we're also seeing, this is another number that it's pretty tough to move up your social dominance, but the actual social dominance, meaning the market share of social activity across all coins, it actually went as high, and this does go back again, I think a lot around the metaverse, but went as high as 1.72% of all social activity on a daily basis. So that's really good. If you zoom out a lot, this is something to look at. In fact, I want to look at like social mentions. So been like all over the place, and kind of interesting though, when you look at just the last, again, few weeks here, things are popping up. There's a lot of buzz that's creeping back here. Back in here, there was like some promotional like NFT launches and things, different kinds of projects were launching. And there's a lot of excitement that led up to this huge run. And now here we are again, and there's some really interesting activity. I do just want to shout out the top influencers over the past 2 years here. So Zilliqa, obviously, very, very busy here, but Crypto Tony's done a lot. OKX has done a lot. Lunar Crush has posted a lot as we've seen some of these insights. We've got XCAD, the Gem Miner, VZ, Vela Crypto, House of Chimera. We see them with a lot of really awesome reports. Our friends over at DAOmaker, Dango, Vivian, Choco Boy, Crypto Busy, our Lunar Token, Bitpanda, Duazel, and Zill Street Bets, and I'll stop there. And let's pause this and let me stop sharing my screen. And let's bring our guests in. Welcome, Matt and Art. How are you doing today?
Amazing. Excited to be here. Looking
And
forward.
well, chaps, thanks for having us on. The stats look pretty impressive.
Yes.
Great to have you guys. Great to have you guys.
Of course. So where in the world are you joining us from today?
Well, if you can tell from my shirt, I probably should be in Miami, but I'm actually just outside of London town.
That's good. And New York, by my shirt from New York.
A New York shirt.
Yeah, so excited to be here. It's glad to hear those stats. Yeah, we've been working behind the scenes a lot on, making sure there's a lot of things happening in Zilliqa in the coming months. So, hint, hint, wink, wink, more is coming. But we're happy with the direction. We just there's always can be done more, but I think we can, a lot.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think leading up to Miami, we obviously had that massive inflection point. I think behind the scenes, we've been doing a lot of work probably over the past year, trying to kind of lay the foundations around the kind of the ramp up to that. So it was all really about how do we drive, I guess, for the community and for awareness within Zilliqa, how do we drive outside in adoption to the Zilliqa blockchain? And I think with the likes of what we've done with Ninjas in Pajamas, RRQ, and a few other the esports teams, we've done some really good stuff around the creator network with XCAD, yourself. There's obviously been the momentum and the story and the narrative around that has been kind of slowly building. And then obviously with the Metapolis, I guess, presentation layer and the kind of the meta hype that was starting to build, I think we'd already laid the foundation. We kind of knew the vision and what we're trying to execute. So it wasn't really necessarily about that day and knowing the price was going to get to that. We'd had a kind of a vision. How do we drive outside in adoption? And the metaverse, Metapolis, just happened to be that kind of anchor point where all these projects, engagements came together. So yeah, I think on that point, we were really happy with kind of the way the market moved and the kind of the sentiment started building. And maybe kind of behind the scenes, that's why you're starting to see a bit more depth to kind of the conversations in that people with the hiring. Obviously, Art's from America. We've got a few people in America. We've got a lot of pushback historically around that. We're starting to kind of put the kind of the beachheads in place that allows people to start to look, oh, actually, Zilliqa are a serious player, and starting to kind of talk about us a lot more.
We have so many questions around everything you're saying. Let's go back though. Let's go back before. We love to humanize crypto. We love to talk to the people behind it and not just look at the markets. Tell us about yourselves. Tell us what does your career look like and what got you here today?
I'll start. So I've been in digital marketing for ever and ever, basically most of my life. And I always like business. So to me, marketing is kind of a art form, no pun intended. But realistically, it's I was part of the digital agency back in the day. I done the SEO content. I was running the agency with different clients from all over the place. I worked with real estate and cloud and e-commerce and startups. You mentioned it. I seen how the marketing executed on that end. And at some point, I was kind of getting tired, burned out. It was around 2016. I done it for a bunch of years, and I said, it's fine. I was co-founder in a digital agency, and I said, enough is enough. I want to. I needed something new, and at the time, blockchain came around, and we actually worked with a project where I got really excited about it. I never really looked at crypto before in a way that, hey, I should go join crypto. It was like, no, it might be a little too much Silk Road for me. And then when you run into the actual usage and applications and ways you can build a story, I think it's really right now, to me, the crypto world it's like different. Every blockchain is kind of a layer one or block. It's really space being built. It's continents floating around, islands floating around, and doesn't make sense yet. We don't have the exact placement in Europe, America, Africa. We don't have that. It's still, everybody is kind of fighting and vying for it for different spaces, and that would really got me interested at the time. And so I, moved from digital marketing to blockchain crypto marketing, and since then I've been, experiencing that. I was part of blockchain driven. I was part of Polymarket, IoTex, and really I think Zilliqa has amazing future. So I wanted to join the journey. That's my story.
Yeah, from my perspective, I have a background really from a system integrator perspective. So kind of did a lot of work with the likes of DHL globally, managed those accounts, and a lot of that was driven around automation. So I guess from a real-time settlement and everything else, a lot of that kind of had a lot of parallels. You kind of use links of Google, Twilio. So it's all about that kind of foundation layer that can be leveraged by applications to drive an outcome. So I guess the parallels between that and crypto are quite close. And then I spent a couple of years living in Singapore, and I started to get into the crypto kind of rabbit hole then. And I think anything that comes out of Singapore is technically going to be legitimate. So I was quite quickly aligned to what Zilliqa were doing. And I think your mission's very much around community and that aspect of community. So I started out in the Zilliqa community a long time ago. So my growth has been from community into Zilliqa and kind of moved on from there. So yeah, it's quite a good testament to what we're all here to do.
And as you talk about community, that's a super relevant topic right now as we see Elon purchasing Twitter. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on these huge social platforms and Elon purchasing Twitter specifically?
The question I've got to ask is, has Stanley become the CEO? Or is that just a wind up? I think it's really significant, isn't it? I think everyone wants a voice. Everyone's got a soapbox. I think we all know working in this space, it can be quite dramatic. I've kind of not been on Twitter for a while because for different reasons, been quite too busy, whatever. But I think it's really important that we understand who the people are, what people are saying, and you can authenticate everything that comes out from what people are saying. And I think if Elon can come on and maybe offer a bit more openness and transparency, I don't think it's a bad thing. And from everyone and from a crypto perspective, the fact that he's already in the space maybe causes a bit of confusion now and again. I don't know. It's going to be an exciting journey to watch, isn't it?
For sure.
Yeah, it's disruption in this case might be good. Twitter has been around for a while. They have really haven't tried anything that radical. So if Elon wants to try it, might succeed, might fail. But it's we're in blockchain space where it's you got to go out and try it, right? To figure out new spaces, figure out new ways to do things. It's not established yet. So hey, let's have Twitter taste that medicine and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess the question is, John, as well, is does Elon follow you boys in terms of what you're doing?
I'll say we've tagged him a few times and we've mentioned him quite a few times. It's sort of interesting what we do because there's a lot of times like if he just tweets Doge, it goes wild. And so he inherently becomes a mega influencer for certain coins like Dogecoin, and it's happened during Ethereum and Bitcoin. And so he inevitably ends up in the news in some form or another. What we find really interesting is that when he does things, it causes 500 media outlets to write articles about the same thing. And sometimes those articles are just about a tweet. And so for us, what's been really interesting is to see, well, which out of every event that that there's a story about him, which article is shared the most? Because if 500 articles are talking about the same thing and one is more than the others, what did they do right? And so that's been really interesting to watch because we track all of that activity. But yeah, I think,
I guess from your perspective as well, and I guess that's the key to what you guys do. You've got the data, you've got the insight. And as, I guess, institutions, as more retail investors come on board, having that kind of, I guess, leading indicator around where the market's going. And I know you guys have probably got some exciting stuff that you're going to bring out. I think, I guess, products like what you've got are going to be more and more important to the market as it kind of matures more and more. So it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah. I think just the analytics space in general around crypto is still in its infancy, and we happen to, tackle a social angle to that. But there's so many different sides to it. Even from like, we look at it like just from like the operational side of things, understanding what's going on your blockchain, understanding if, hey, your bridge has a hole in it and it's leaking, and there's been hacks recently that the devs didn't even know it for days. So like we look at it from like the B2B side is massive. And from the investor standpoint, it's sort of like, you could say there's on-chain data, and it's like great to paint your picture. But what we see is it doesn't necessarily move the market in real time like community does. And so in terms of price, performance, and market activity. So there's all sorts of sides to this. We look at ourselves as it's still the first inning. Like there are so many things that we're going to be building. We have a full roadmap of years of development ahead.
And the reality is Lunar Crush brings a great tool of, set of tools for people to do research, understand it, especially if you're in crypto community and you're doing, be that trading or analysis or really anything that relates to data, like in marketing, for example. With Lunar Crush, even back in Avitex, we have used it to make better decisions because, tracking different activities, tracking different assets. So there is a huge utility to and need, to what Lunar Crush is doing. So therefore, absolutely, it's important aspect for analytics. It's, there's price, but there's also you got to make decisions. And so, for in marketing, it's all about really understanding your customer and how and making better decisions. Like you showed earlier, that if you see that there is certain engagement behind some events or happenings, that is valuable potential information. Why is it happening? How can we examine it and look at it closely and maybe learn from it and then repeat it later? So that's why I like, the analytics elements. And what Lunar Crush doing is really interesting as well for everybody in the space.
What we find most interesting is we sort of look at the community drives absolutely everything. If someone's building a dApp on Zilliqa or any chain or building anything, it literally dies without community. It in other words, like no exchange will list you. You'll have no liquidity. You'll have no trade volume. You can't build a successful application if you don't drive that community. And that means even before you launch, as you're evolving, you have to involve people in your product. And what's really crazy is we've been on this show. I think this is our, 105th, 110th episode of this. We a lot of times ask like, well, how do you evaluate success? And it's sort of interesting because there's these business type people in crypto that are looking for Web 2.0 KPIs. They're looking for traditional success metrics. Web 3, you don't even know who your user is if it's fully decentralized and anonymous. So we're stuck somewhere between the two. And inevitably, you're going to look at things like, transaction volume and number of holders and all that stuff. But do you have a share of voice? Like we talked about Elon, that dude has a share of voice. That's why he's able to buy Twitter. Make no question about it. If he was a no one, this wouldn't have happened. Right. So it's sort of like, if you look at that community and the metrics around crypto, community is the top of everything. Without it, it doesn't work. So
absolutely, yeah. And in fact, it's Zilliqa. So as Matt mentioned, there's a lot of new people, me including. I recently started, so there's a lot of structures, and the community is one of the things that we've been really tackling. And we have Tiago and Alex and others who are really, making sure that we can amplify and grow and build the core community. Like we already have core community. How can we go and, get community engaged more from metaverse space, gaming and such. So this is really a big, I would say objective for us in the coming, and in this year, and which will be part of, community building, marketing and other things.
Yeah, I think it was an important thing for us to try and, I guess, not harness, but work with the community better. It's quite hard when you're running very hard and people are working on multiple kind of roles. So I think from maybe having more of a focus, I know a lot of people are now moving to Discord as the kind of medium as opposed to Telegram to maybe drive the engagement. We've obviously got Tiago's come in. I think he worked at like Cardano before, and Alexander's worked at some other chains. So we're very conscious that we need to do that kind of primary, secondary research to understand what is motivating the community, what are we doing wrong, what are we doing right, how do we potentially look to build out an ambassador program. I know we started ones previously. Obviously, that's something that's going to be kind of built out a lot more to kind of amplify and kind of grow that reach and just really understand what is needed to kind of make that community grow. Because as we know, within a business, you'll have a community, you've got a wider community, you've got partners that you're working on, as another community that you need to service. So you need the kind of right individuals in the right places, kind of tracking the metrics that make sense to them and to the business. And then at the end of it, I guess we look back and say, from a price perspective, a TVL perspective, or even projects coming to look to build on Zilliqa as another thing, as kind of maybe a statement that the awareness is starting to build, the confidence is building, and therefore we want to kind of, launch and do things on Zilliqa. Because if you look at Token Tracks as a great example of a project that recently or will create a DApp on Zilliqa, and they've got the New Zealand pension fund investing in their project. When would you ever have thought a kind of a pension fund would invest in a Web3 project? So again, from a Zilliqa statement, when you say to me, how do you check community? Well, from our perspective, they've obviously looked at the market, seen the community. Zilliqa is obviously a strong community that gets behind projects. Therefore, we are prepared to start to invest in projects that are building on Zilliqa because we back and trust what they're doing. So for me, that was only a couple of weeks ago, was a massive statement in terms of what Zilliqa is actually doing.
Matt, before, just real quick before we dive into Zilliqa, I am so curious, what is the perspective of a pension fund getting into crypto right now? What are you seeing?
I think the perspective is that there's obviously gaps in terms of how they're going to pay the pensions when everyone retires. So I think if they can hedge in, see the upside potential that might exist, understand that the utility is being built in these new projects that are building in this world. It's no longer kind of seen as something that, I don't want to get involved, it's not real. That's a validation for me that what we're all doing here, what we're building is real, adding value, adding utility. And we're going to see a lot more pension funds getting involved, I suspect.
That's exciting.
Nice. Hey guys, so just to take a step back, we're getting into the meat of it right now, but just from a high level perspective, for people that don't know, can you take a step back and let us know, what is Zilliqa? Give us a little bit of backstory.
So, I mean, I'm new here, so once again, it's for me, Zilliqa is going to be, it's a blockchain that innovates through different verticals. So there is metaverse, there is gaming, there is potentially DeFi. So there's different verticals that we're looking to improve, and some of them we have potential to dominate. And so Zilliqa is really built around innovation, and it's I would say, and that's how we kind of want to go forward. That Zilliqa does some really interesting, I would say, groundbreaking stuff, and how do we portray it and show it and showcase it over the next few years? That will be critical for us. Matt?
Yeah, I think for me, invisible innovation is probably where I see Zilliqa, to be honest. It's not really about Zilliqa itself. It's kind of what the projects that are building on Zilliqa require, and can Zilliqa deliver an outcome for that business? So I don't know whether that's yield generation for farmers to kind of get an outcome. It might be an esports team who are trying to drive fan engagement and kind of get closer affinity with their fans. How can they leverage Web3 to kind of deliver that? Is it, I don't know, a remittance to Ghana so you don't have to pay 10, 15% to TransferWise or whoever? We've got a technology as a layer one that enables you to kind of think out of the box. And I think that's what makes me so proud, I guess, to work for Zilliqa, or I guess any other layer one. We're in that position where people aren't constrained by the technology anymore. And I think from what Art's kind of talking about being an enabler, for me, that is what Zilliqa delivers. You could talk about sharding and throughput and all that good stuff that everyone kind of talked about probably back in 2017, but we're probably getting more to the point now is, can that blockchain deliver an outcome for the applications building on said blockchain? And I think Zilliqa is in a strong position to do that. And I think we are driving hard. There might be some gaps that people say we could have, it'd be good to have X, Y, and Z. That's been identified. You can see from the hiring that we've done, we're going to be filling some of the gaps to kind of enable that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited in terms of what's happening on Zilliqa at the moment. So,
that's great. Thanks for that. And then you kind of touched a little bit upon this, but so aside from, and maybe this is the core ideology behind it, but like, how do you really distinguish Zilliqa from other blockchains? What are the elements that make you different?
So it's a good question. And I think I've spoken to a lot of brands recently around that. They're obviously talking to the likes of Solana, they're talking to Avalanche. And a lot of the conversations of this are same in terms of what a blockchain, a layer one can deliver. And a lot of the time it comes back to the people that are having the conversations. I know technology is at the heart of blockchain, but the reality is when you think about the likes of Sandra in terms of her kind of pedigree and what she brings from an NFT metaverse perspective, she can talk the language of art, she can talk the language of kind of metaverse, which I guess gives the confidence in terms of what Web3 can deliver. And a byproduct of that is the Zilliqa blockchain. So I think a big part of what we do is getting the people on board. And again, we've invested a lot in people. We've got people coming in from a gaming vertical as well. We're bringing a lot of strength and depth. And again, when you're starting to have the conversations with studios or developers or AAA games, the conversation quickly moves away from the technology. And it is really about, do you trust that person as a safe pair of hands? Do you trust what they're trying to do? Do you trust their ambition? And going back to your point, John, do they have a big enough community that's going to support said dApps built on the blockchain? And I think from our perspective, Zilliqa ticks those boxes. Obviously, there's always areas for improvement in anything that you do. But I think in that respect, we've got a really strong team, which at the moment is standing us in good stead.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then, so with that foundational basis kind of put into place, what are you seeing for the future? What is the vision moving forward for Zilliqa?
I guess there's two aspects to that. We've obviously got a requirement to deliver more awareness to the world around Zilliqa. So obviously we'll be driving projects, whether that's sponsorship arrangements, whether that's bringing dApps onto the platform that we're involved in to drive engagement. So esports, as I say, is a great example of that, where we've driven awareness. People understand who Zilliqa are, not just in the crypto community, and we're getting access to a lot of people we've never had before. We're going to kind of build that. There's another aspect where we need to fund different projects building on Zilliqa. So again, there's going to be obviously more capital, like a lot of the other blockchains are delivering, to kind of support that mechanism. And I think the attraction of, I guess, getting more bridges, getting more coverage against wallets. Obviously, I guess the Holy Grail used to be getting on Coinbase and Kraken and these different exchanges. Obviously, if you deliver in other aspects, a byproduct of that will be a listing on Coinbase and Kraken, because there's no rational reason why that wouldn't happen. So I think what we're kind of doing is putting the building blocks in place where maybe there has been gaps. We'll fill those gaps, keep building and doing what we're doing. And I think Zilliqa, people talk to the sleeping whale. I think we're waking up, to be honest.
So interesting. Just like, and we're dealing with this on our own as well. It's like there's two such major narratives in crypto, and one is, when are you going to get listed on X exchange, right? And when can I make $1 million tomorrow? And it's sort of this impatient, to be honest, mainly nonsense. Like in no other industry does this happen, right? And so there's kind of that on one side, and there's the other: build bleeding edge innovation and get adoption. And the reality is, when you look at a lot of the dApps out there, they might have a really awesome message. and they have 13 users. Like, and so I think we're kind of in this interesting space with, like, I guess from a marketing perspective, how do you look at that balance? Like, how do you like balance this where, you're really focused on building to where what you just said, where the outcome is a financial gain? I guess, how do you look at the building side of this?
I think, and this is a good question. So when we did, or I got asked the question actually earlier on today by an American business saying, what is a key metric for us? It needs to be transactions and it needs to be wallets. And if you've got both of them, your application is being used, and if there's transaction, people are deriving value from whatever it is you have. So I think a key metric for us is, so you could look at gaming as an example. What will be a leading indicator for us? Wallets, transactions. So if we can kind of look at that and say we've got a proof point there, that'll be great. A byproduct of that will be, if we look at Discord, there's going to be a lot of users in terms of that gaming channel kind of talking and having those conversations. So again, if you can start to kind of join the dots around kind of the different aspects, I think you're going to be a good place. But yeah, wallets, transactions, key, and then the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. It comes down to actually measure. Going back to the measurements, right? So I come from traditional background, e-commerce and such, where you have very direct, like you mentioned, John, earlier. There's very direct traction of, somebody buys something or somebody that does a transaction, and you can track every step of it. And blockchain there is a little more of a gray area where it's like, what is, sometimes there's nothing to sell yet, or you're building out the pipeline, you're building out the wires, so to make sure that it's a framework to support the future. I think in Zilliqa's case, we're building out really awesome foundation. I think already beyond that, we're building an awesome foundation. So foundation has been built, technology is excellent, and it's really making sure that the metaverse and gaming and other aspects can be scaled. And this is where, this strong team really comes in. So it's a lot of new people came in recently, and and I'm really excited. So once again, I'm very new, so I'm learning my own, getting to know everybody, and it's it's a super strong team. We're going to be doing more highlights and such in the coming months. Everybody, if anybody have question, what's happening? Remember, we I just came in, and prior to that, it's I don't know what was happening exactly, but the thing is, we're always looking to improve things. So that's the objective. In the coming months, you will see a lot of different elements that hasn't been there. You will see a lot more focus on the community, education, and getting to know teams inside of us. So you will get to meet, for example, here is sneak peek. They're going to be gaming session in a couple of weeks with Valentin and Tom, and they're going to go give you some really cool sneak peek on what's coming. And so we're going to do a lot more of that. So we believe in transparency, and we want to, going forward, have a community more engaged. That's like my objective.
So Art, you mentioned the metaverse is one of those things, and I guess it was 3 weeks ago or so. I guess you were all in Miami doing your launch event for the metaverse. So and a lot of commentary, a lot of excitement, a lot of really amazing photos and videos shared and stories, and also a lot of questions around, well, we want to know what's next. We want to understand where this is going. So I don't know if you can maybe talk a little more about where it's going, and maybe even get specific, like how will profiles work, and payments and NFTs, and what are some of the things that the users of it are going to be able to do?
So I think from a perspective of when's it going to be available, which obviously gets asked a lot, I think when you look at the narrative that's been talked about, it was never going to be a launch per se on that day. We've been kind of building very close, and we're very close to launching with Ninjas in Pajamas, who were the first, I guess, team to kind of invest in the metaverse and kind of our Metapolis and build out their own construct. So it's very much around creating their presentation layer, their avatars, their gamification, their the look and feel, however they want their kind of metaverse to look, and delivering that to brands. So if you think about it, we've got a metaverse or a Metapolis that's going to be a city for Ninjas in Pajamas. You're going to have the likes of Mad Lions having their own one, RRQ in the States. other brands onboarded into it. So again, when they open up or they activate their specific Metapolis, their community are going to get first access into that. I think from a Zilliqa perspective, we've also got Zilliqa City that's going to be coming out soon. So whether that's avatars, whether that's land parcels, whether that's domes, the ability and the access to purchase that is going to be coming very soon. I'm not going to steal Sandra's thunder around that, but it's imminent. And I guess the key thing and key message, and again, we get a lot of pushback around this, is Zilliqa is definitely not one of these blockchains that kind of does the hype, and we get a lot of pushback for that. We've kind of built out what we think is going to be a sustainable business as far as the metaverse is concerned. We need to kind of deliver an outcome for their brands. We've kind of built that out. It looks amazing in terms of what Sandra and the team have built out. And I think watch this space. But yes, you will have access to buy things very, very soon.
And you guys are viewing it, it's like, you call it metaverse as a service. And
Yeah,
so it's sort of not like, I guess just to reference it, because just for clarification for the community, it's like, it's not Zilliqa's metaverse, it's everyone's metaverse that they're building in, and there's users within.
So if you, for example, Lunar Crush might say, right, we want to have our own, I guess, Metapolis or metaverse that we kind of set up. So I don't know, you've got Lunar at the center of it. You might have Coinbase as an example, and they might have taken, I don't know, a feed from Lunar and they're presenting data to kind of their customers, whatever else. They might want to have a pop-up or a brand or a store that's in vicinity of Lunar. So you're creating your own ecosystem like you're doing now. You create your own city, you create your own partners that allows you to kind of bring people into your metaverse, have those interactions, have that gamification, have that engagement. You as a brand can own that experience and create that experience. That's your gift. So this is really about you framing your narrative, creating that story, and you can allow whoever you want to come into that metaverse, but you as that brand are in control of that.
Yeah, it's
Does that make sense, or?
Yeah. It does. Go ahead, Art.
Metaverse service. I think the different take here is that we're not trying to say everybody, hey, all size fits all, right? You just get this thing and it's done. It's really more providing customized experience to the businesses. And really allowing them, they don't need to have heavy technical background, because they can build, and the Metapolis team helps them customize it. So I think this is the very unique take on.
I think if you think about Salesforce as a great example from a CRM perspective, you're going to get some consultants to come in, say, right, you want Salesforce. It's probably not going to deliver out of the box what you require. You want it customized, you want the views, you want the kind of experience, you want the outcomes, you want the insight specific to your kind of business. As a service, Metapolis for your brand will deliver that engagement for you, your partners, for your community. So I think it's quite exciting alternative to allow brands to drive our metaverse Web3 story. And if you think about where we get a lot of engagement from our perspective, I know LinkedIn is probably not the medium that people in crypto love. If you think about where we're getting a lot of opportunities, I had a guy from UBS pinging me today, asking me about, right, let's have a look at what we're doing from a metaverse perspective. We like what we're seeing. We are starting to see a lot of kind of brands wanting to control that environment, drive user acquisition, drive growth. And I think from that aspect, they understand and like that concept around having it as a service, having it the ability to create it for how they like. So I think that is in essence what it is. Because I think what people wanted to say, right, where is it? When can I jump into it? But that's not what it is.
It's really an interesting time, because I don't even know how many metaverse projects there are out there, right? And some of them are like, it's our metaverse. You will use our metaverse, not like this metaverse as a service that's a utility that you build into. I'm so curious about, like, this is the very definition of bleeding edge innovation. And how are you seeing businesses sort of talk about their use case and what they want to do? Like, where are they?
I think it's new roads to acquisition. So at the moment, the thing, right, how do we acquire new customers? How do we stay relevant? Obviously, they're kind of bought into the hype train. They're seeing everyone do it. But when you kind of sit down and break it down, is how do they give more back to their community? How do they give more back to their fans in a way that feels authentic, feels engaging, kind of drives excitement? And that, for us, when we're sitting down, ninjas in pajamas, I keep going back to them, kind of working really hard with them. They've built out a story. They've got a fan, a community that they understand. I don't know, in the UK, we had a thing called Jack and Nori, where you used to read a book. They've got the different episodes that they've built out that's going to create this story, create this journey, gamify the experience. But with the premise that this is going to give an outcome to their fans that they're going to feel they can get something from. And then by basis of that, they're going to remain sticky. So I guess from a revenue perspective, it will drive financial benefit for them. But at the same time, it's going to drive that stickiness, which all brands are worried about. How do you retain? Once you acquire somebody, how do you keep them? Not easy, as we all know.
But the metaverse, the answer here is it's still right back to the community and building that community out.
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's the thing. So if you think about a metaverse, key underpinning it is gamification, having the users and having stuff for them to do. So from a DeFi perspective, if you don't have the right products and primitive for them to kind of maybe gamify it or do some DeFi in it, are we going to get the crypto people in there? Probably not. Yeah. But on the same breath, people who are not in crypto, they don't understand that side of it. How do you bring them into the kind of the narrative around what it means to play in crypto? So it's kind of this balancing act you're trying to manage, where you're kind of trying to get new users into the space because we need new users into the space. But at the same time, you need to have TVL, you need to have DeFi products within the metaverse to drive TVL, to drive that captivity. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of metaverses with nobody in them. And then a lot of the naysayers will be coming back saying, I told you so. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. There's going to be a lot of iteration. But I think I'm really confident from what I'm seeing that we're going to drive a lot of engagement.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead, Art.
Yeah, and in fact, we've seen quite a lot of that in the last month, where people might be saying, or what's happening on Zilliqa? The reality is, in the last 5 months, in the last month, we had a traffic increase in site probably equivalent to what we normally have in 6 months. So, and that's a lot of people who are looking for engagement, learning about Zilliqa, learning about what next. So it's really, maybe people don't see what's happening, but reality is we know, because we also have analytics, and we can see that the equivalent of wasn't just social media. It was across. We saw this really huge interest in what Zilliqa is doing, and that also turns an eye on what's next. For metaverse, for gaming, for DeFi. So ultimately, for my role is quite a bit is really to make sure we have the strong foundation to build forward, and be that engaging more with community, bringing out more highlights of what exactly is Zilliqa doing, giving more of a really closer looks into our plans and how it's going to be rolled out, and doing it systematically to more people and building a larger audience. And that's what in our plan of action for next few months, because there's a lot of things that have to be built first.
But I think the other thing about this as well is there's a lot of really good projects building on Zilliqa. So if you look at XCAD, great example. I don't know how many streamers and YouTubers they've got that are kind of backing their projects. So again, by awareness, by virtue of that, it's got to be good for Zilliqa. We've got Agora, which again is an artist, music-based marketplace that kind of is helping people around the world in terms of getting, I guess, the opportunity to show off their artwork, to show their videos. Historically, people in Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia would never have had the opportunity to actually crowdfund and be somebody. I think from our perspective, we're kind of trying to offer a platform that enables people outside of the crypto ecosystem in terms of what we've been driving a lot of the creators, getting the curators, getting the kind of views, getting the YouTubers, whatever else it needs to be to drive that awareness. I don't know. I just really excited for kind of where we're at the moment.
Oh, that's great. And then, I mean, it's definitely, in some ways it's very exciting. And in some ways it's a challenge too, because of the diversification, right? Like, so how do you when you look at the idea of engagement in community, like, do you guys have a overarching philosophy towards engagement of community, or has it gotten to the point now where you're basically segmenting based on the different type of project that you're involved with?
I'll let our answer. I'll give a kind of view from my perspective. I think as you grow as a blockchain, you get a lot more projects coming on board, and obviously there's an onus on the projects who are building, having their own marketing, having their control, and kind of driving that forward. And then on the flip side, how does Zilliqa? And to be fair, we probably need to be getting better at supporting. But I think it's obviously a two-way kind of street in terms of how do you build out the marketing engagement so we can both maximize on the campaign.
Right.
So I think we've got a bit to learn. I think it's such a new space that a lot of the projects building on Zilliqa obviously are kind of working out as well. So it's a bit of a two-way street. I don't know, Art, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's I think for us, when it comes to, in this case, we're talking about what's next. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it's more about the idea of, like, whether or not you have a like generalist approach towards engagement of community versus more segmentation based on individual project.
So from what I have seen before, and I believe that this is very similar to strong layer one. If you have even if you have segmentation, let's say somebody who is have a game of community gaming, that community actually interested in what's happening with the main layer one. So there is interconnectivity for sure. So what I found is it's more of you have a stream, a channel, and that's where, by the way, we'll go back to clearer communication. That's something that we will be building out to make sure that if person is part of our main community, they know what projects coming up. They know what the latest news coming up. They know what are the things to look out for, what to try. And this is something that has been probably in the past maybe a little bit under the rug. And so that's kind of my role, is to really help people when they come on Zilliqa to really learn and engage better, understand what they can do, what are the variety of things they can do, and ultimately they will be on Zilliqa, but they also might be playing a game, or they might be using DeFi space, or they might be using Metaverse. So really we want to be a welcoming family that really has this large channel of people. People choose what they want to do.
I think the other aspect around it as well is obviously a lot of projects are going cross-chain now. So where does the boundaries lie? If you're on Binance chain or you're on Zilliqa, who's responsible for the promotion? Is it the layer one? Is it where does it sit? So it can get a little bit confusing, and I know frustrating on both sides in terms of you're trying to support, when's the right time to support, are you giving enough support to the right project? It's actually really challenging to kind of manage, and we do our best. But as we scale up more and more, we kind of get more projects building. Again, I guess it's that process around how do you support probably will evolve in time. So yeah,
it's a really interesting topic here too, because if you think about a sustainable dApp, something that look, anyone can build a dApp with 50 users, right? With a transaction here and there. But, for example, like LunarCrush, right? We've got Lunar. We also have a business to run that requires, in our case, mainly US dollars, right? We haven't sold a single Lunar, and we're running a business separately. And it's like a totally separate thing versus having to build completely and totally on a token. There are projects that build their dApp just to sell their own token and dump on the market. Mm-hmm. And that is completely unsustainable. It is completely the wrong model. And that's an interesting point, because when you talk about, hey, we want to participate as a layer one with this dApp that has built upon our layer one, how do you make sure that layer one's sustainable? It's like there's a certain economic model that has to take place for it to work. Otherwise, we end up seeing these things launch and die. And I guess, what's your perspective on that?
I totally agree with you. I think, how do you bring, people outside of crypto with new capital that's not necessarily token based, it's maybe US dollar, euro, the pound, or whatever, into the economy to drive a utility, to drive an outcome that will obviously help that economy grow. So I guess from your perspective, maybe selling the data or doing whatever you're going to do with the data to institutions or whatever that will then kind of fund, pay for salaries, do whatever you're going to do is an important construct of that. So I think you've got to kind of understand clearly the financial kind of implications of what you're doing, and that just offering APY is just basically a race to the bottom, and that isn't enough to be sustainable. There needs to be kind of influx of new money and things and utility that people can buy for it to be successful.
Right.
Totally. I mean, look at 99% of the tokens that are built around DEXs on any chain, on any chain, same problem. And so when there's a lack of, like, once someone's provided liquidity and got those rewards and then they're done, now what? That now what? If they're now what's not in place, it isn't sustainable. And I think this right here is one of the biggest problems in crypto, because
without a shadow of a doubt. And I think when you're looking at some of the layer ones, and I don't know what we're going to see in 2022, a lot of them, like Zilliqa ourselves, are in the gaming from a perspective of building something that's sustainable, going to get new people in, it's going to drive transactions, it's going to drive engagement, in-game assets. There is an economy that's already proven. I guess convincing gamers to come and play in the crypto side of it is obviously another conversation, but you can see why, from a sustainability perspective, a lot of layer ones are maybe moving into that kind of space. Again, esports, you've got the ability to do advertising, you've got the ability to buy merchandise, you've got the ability to do prediction markets from a gambling standpoint. So when you think about this kind of metaverse and what you're building there is actually an economy that just doesn't rely on the kind of liquidity farms that we all know and love so well. There is this utility where you can buy real goods, you can do transactions, you can make predictions, which I think for me is really exciting and takes us away from just this narrative of the race to the bottom with APY, which is not sustainable.
We actually, even when we launched LunarFi on our own site, we weren't after saying, hey, here's 800% APY or whatever it is, or 3,000.
Right.
We said, you know what? Let's do 25% and let's make it fully sustainable for many, many years and predictable. Not as sexy up front, but it's very sexy 18 months from now. Trust me. Right. When all the other APY that you aped into is now way down below where it makes any sense at all.
And that's the thing. You need to play in the curve wars. You need to have the stable coins. You need to drive that from a TVL and get the kind of the whales and everyone excited, get the institutions excited. And that, so without a shadow of doubt, that is part of what we do. But to your point, how do you kind of derive something that's going to be sustainable, that allows your project, that allows that blockchain to kind of be here in 100 years time? So, or whatever the...
Yeah. And I believe with Zilliqa, we're doing, especially with lots of new directions, where there is potential to have this called a slingshot, where we can have a breakout projects and especially selected carefully that can become a leader on the market. And that's and it's not just like we're doing multiple things that allow us to maximize the value. So we already have great technology, but now we're going to have at some point a breakout.
I think that's as well. But as I say, with the brands, we're kind of launching Reality Marketplace, which is kind of doing physical, digital. We've got some well-known brands, we've got non-established bands, we've got artists that people have got a massive following that maybe mainstream doesn't know. So that, again, is a really exciting project, which you think about, right, what is bringing out awareness to Zilliqa? Okay, that marketplace will deliver that. You've then got Metapolis as a presentation layer, driving value and opportunities within that window. You've got a gaming vertical that's going to be strong and kind of help games build that out. And then underpinning all of this, I know a lot of people say, what's Zilliqa kind of doing? They're not focused on DeFi. If you don't have DeFi underpinning all of that, you aren't going to have people coming to your blockchain. So that still is a fundamental component and a key area that we're kind of driving towards the DeFi aspect. So yeah.
Cool. I would love to go to some questions if you guys are open to that from the community.
As long as they're good ones.
Yeah,
there are good ones. Yeah, nothing about like when Binance and all this stuff and why not Moon. We don't answer those. Just to remind, if your question gets answered, you can win a Lunar Crush care package or level 4 access. We're going to give away 1 care package and 2 level 4 accesses to lunarcrush.com, which is 500 Lunar. So to start, I truly love this one because this is always on everyone's mind. As adoption continues, how will Zilliqa keep fees affordable to make GameFi and DeFi viable? Some transactions like unstaking and claiming on DXCAT are costing 60 Zill, about $6. That's significant. This is a major thing so I just want to add a couple points to this too. So like when we talk adoption, I'll just pop this back up there. When we talk adoption, I don't know if people understand just where we're at in the curve. Like, there's a number of studies that were done at the end of last year showing that about 300 million people owned crypto. It took 13 years to get to 300 million people owning crypto. By the end of this year, the studies are pointing to 1 billion. So 300 million people, 13 years, 300 to 1 million, 1 year. So when we talk about things like gas fees and we talk about adoption in building, this is a very important question. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, gas fees comes up a lot. And I think previously there was a kind of a vote around what would happen with gas fees, the cost to transact. So I think there's the ability to kind of look at what the gas fee kind of looks like. So again, that will probably go to, when you look at what we're doing from a governance perspective and everything else, that's an aspect where we probably will look to leverage on that to drive a change. Because obviously if you start changing gas fees, there's impact to miners and everything else. So it's not something you can just do overnight. But yeah, it's noted, get a lot of feedback and conversations happening around it. And it's just something that we need to kind of look at.
I'm new, so I'm listening to Matt on that as well. Yes.
But yeah, it's a fair challenge and one we get asked a lot. I think it's one we kind of need to look at, take to the powers that be internally and kind of work out kind of where we need to be around that to be competitive.
It's interesting because transferring from wallet to wallet is really low, really cheap. I think it's like 0.1 or something. It's really low. But then when you start to build a DApp and you're transferring across ZR2s and things kind of stack up, there's multiple transactions in VBlock and it sort of does add up, and it's sort of like at scale that ends up being significant. So it is.
I guess at some stage, somebody needs to pay for something in terms of this decentralized kind of framework that we've got. So I think it's just getting the sweet spot around what makes sense for everyone, for miners, for the end users, for the creators, so that everyone gets a happy outcome. So it's things that we're looking at. And I think from our perspective, from a roadmap perspective, when you kind of look at things we're doing from an EVM perspective, in terms of driving changes, in terms of the network, by the wit of man, I think these are things or aspects that we can quite easily look at in terms of changing kind of what that looks like.
Cool. I'm going to take one. This one's for Lunar Crush, actually. So it says Lunar Crush. This is from, I'm going to mess this up, Theophilus Yarfi Asare, maybe. Lunar Crush is an intelligent platform, and over time, it learns and gives you what you need. How does the Lunar team plan on building a smart, intelligent AI platform as data grows to really help end users? So this is an interesting, sort of like our mission is somewhere in here. I mean, we don't look at ourselves as a data-driven company, even though we've got tons of data and everyone probably looks at us as a data provider. We look like a user experience-driven entity where we collect millions of posts every single day. Displaying that is no small feat. Making that not just presentable, but then intuitive and then actionable is even harder. And so what we look at is like, how do we constantly improve as we like collect more data sources, have more metrics, look at new elements and different things. How do we make that really actionable? Because on one end, we could say that we're here to say, well, hey, if social activity moves up, does it correlate to price? That's one perspective. The other is maybe, who do I follow and who's influential for the coins I care about? The other might be, hey, I'm a project and I want to connect with my community. And so there's this whole industry side of what we do too. And we're just barely starting there. And we also look at that as like, even from the tokens perspective, like what audiences do you create demand for your token with? We actually believe there's way more on the industry side for our token than there is with what we currently have done. So, and we're just starting. So I'd say like, as we improve our user experience, we improve the actionability of everything that we do. So that's how I'd answer that. Norman, I think I see you have a question.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. This talks a little bit about what we were discussing before about, general versus some very specific types of initiatives. So we've recently seen that Zilliqa became sponsor of the Blockchain Gaming Alliance. How will this partnership help Zilliqa to spread awareness and increase adoption?
So just from my perspective, you need to be part of these bodies to kind of, I guess, show you're serious about moving into that space. You need to drive thought leadership. You need to drive awareness. So I think from my perspective, Blockchain Game Alliance is a key component of that. It's the kind of the industry standard in terms of where everyone's playing. And if Zilliqa wasn't part of that community, you could argue the merits of how good or how bad it is. If you're not part of that community, you're not seen as a serious player. I think from my perspective, you're going to see a big ramp up, as I say, in terms of communication, awareness, kind of thought leadership in the gaming vertical specifically. We've got somebody joining next Tuesday, actually. He's come from Tencent. So again, if you're looking at the big players that play in that space, we're kind of hiring the right talent to give us the insight in what's happening in the market. Valentin joined recently. Tom joined recently. These guys have all got great pedigree. And sitting behind that, I think we've got 4 or 5 developers specifically focused in on the gaming vertical that's going to drive adoption, kind of, I guess, input from gaming studios and everything else. So I do actually think in the next few months, you're going to see Zilliqa being seen as one of the serious players in the gaming space. So yeah, I am extremely bullish on gaming.
Absolutely, and likewise for me as well. I in fact in my previous project I helped roll out play to earn games, so I have some experience, and I'm excited to see it to be in a place where we're super doubling down on various aspects, not just gaming, but a lot of things. That's what's exciting about Zilliqa. We're doing a lot of things that are pretty new. It's a space that to me is very wide open, like blue ocean. Like the play to earn gaming is super new. Last year is only when it took off. Like we're talking about last summer. You can see the trajectory, and then there was a huge jump. And so we're really just in the very beginning of this whole evolution. Yet we're talking about hundreds of millions of users potentially coming to the blockchain, right? So it's not hard to imagine that there are going to be a lot of users coming from that space. And at Zilliqa, we're taking it very seriously. And so that's why I think we have to be part of governing bodies, as Matt mentioned. It's kind of part of the role, because that's where you're building connections. That's where you're building the right things you want to have in the future. And so for us, it's being part of that is a no-brainer, of course.
Art, I want. There's actually a lot of questions about marketing, and I know you inherited a lot here. You're new, but like I'm going to give Samaran Bera some credit here for the Zilliqa team. How is the team planning to do the marketing in a bigger way than it has been? Because Zilliqa has solid fundamentals, but I still think we are far behind in the case of marketing. So there's a lot of, I guess, questions just in terms of where do things kind of grow from here, and where are you going? Where do you plan on taking things?
And it's a great question. So for marketing, once again, Matt can say more about the previous marketing. All I can say is that I want to build the right framework. So for example, for me, if we're bringing somebody who learns just for the first time about Zilliqa, how that user journey looks, are we showing them the projects that could be engaging them? Or not at all, or nothing? Are we letting them have the journey of finding the new elements? Are we using the right voice? Are we showing the branding in a good way? Are we highlighting, let's say gaming or metaverse? Are we actually showing what's happening behind the scenes? So there's going to be a lot more interaction with the company, with the community itself, and also externally, not just our community, but external blockchain crypto community. So we're working with working more on a systematic publications, more systematically with different ways of influencers. That is not just somebody covered Zilliqa randomly, but really working in a relationship that allow us to really maximize the amount of engagement we're getting from a person who finds our brand and able to engage it, maybe suggest to their friend. So all those loops and parts were not present. So I'm here to, it's once again, I just got here. So if anybody asking about marketing, great question. I had a lot of questions too. So thanks. Matt, if you want to jump in a little bit the past, and once again, I know,
I'm just delighted you're here, Art. Marketing in crypto is probably the toughest gig going. But I think from a Zilliqa standpoint, we've done, obviously, talking to the big brands. I don't know, you could be your Man Uniteds, your, I don't know, Chicago Bulls or whoever, New Zealand from a rugby perspective. You kind of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, do something with Coachella or whatever that needs to be. There's a lot of conversations we do have. It's just a question of trying to kind of land the right event, I guess, from a marketing standpoint that people feel, and everyone's got their own view around what kind of marketing looks like. But the reality in crypto a lot of the time is if you get a killer DApp and the price goes, I don't know, 1,000%, you've got the best marketing in the world. I think what Art obviously just kind of mentioned and alluded to is we've kind of grown the team out. He's coming in, building in the structure, building the layers, going to build that consistency out, which wasn't, I guess, there probably previously. So fully aware, we've kind of addressed that point. Art's come in to deliver that. Now what we need to do, obviously, the likes of yourselves, other projects building, I guess, let's find that amazing DApp that is going to build that awareness that will kind of drive whatever that price needs to look like. Which
I mean, the price is ultimately it's about adoption, right? Wallets, transactions, users. So that's where we're focusing on, is on making sure that when people are finding out Zilliqa, they can quickly find out what it is, what do they do, and shorten the education level. So there shouldn't be any confusion. So my focus is really right now on streamlining the communication between us and the potential users. And then we're going to have various verticals, metaverse, gaming, DeFi, so NFT, and all of those we will be focusing on having specific campaigns for them that unlock whatever the biggest offer there. But ultimately, like I said, for me, I just joined, so it's a great question about marketing because it is very important. And marketing is also it's not like done. It's really needs to be various parts that need to be built out. And then it becomes kind of a flow. So your process improves, you're getting more and more people who are more and more excited, and it's kind of a constant loop. Yeah.
But the challenge is you've got kind of two dimensions to it. You've obviously got the retail audience that you need to kind of give a message to, that you need to package up a message. You've also got this other audience where you're selling B2B, trying to get people to kind of buy into Zilliqa's vision in terms of, I don't know, it might be a AAA studio. It might be BMW, it might be Rolls-Royce to come into the metaverse. So you need a kind of a different narrative depend where you're playing. So it's very challenging kind of game. And as I said, I am delighted Art's on board to manage that.
And I'm happy to be here. And it's developers too. So like businesses, developers, people who are just curious. So it's really, it's a medley of narrations. And so, we're focused on adding the clarity, letting everybody, be a better user of our product, learning what Zilliqa is, and bringing much more cool stuff down the line.
I think if we can get the more things like the New Zealand Pension Fund and other big players, big institutions starting to talk about Zilliqa, start to invest in projects building on Zilliqa, get on bigger exchanges, drive our TVL, all the things that I guess the likes of the big crypto press wants to see, or the mainstream press want to see, I think will stand in good stead. And that comes back to your point, John, earlier on. You need to build something that's sustainable, that people kind of believe in. And it's not just a short-term game. We're here for the long term. And I think Zilliqa has been here a long time. We're not maybe seen as the most exciting blockchain because we're not the newest one out there. But if you're thinking about who's a safe pair of hands, who's still here delivering, who's driving real-world adoption, Zilliqa is one of the bigger players in the space, and I'm sure in time the market size or market cap will reflect that. So yeah.
It's pretty interesting because I've been following the bear market NFT project that launched the Metazoa thing with it's cool. It's actually really fun what they've done, and it's funny because you just look at a year ago NFTs on Zilliqa, and now we're like to see what's happening right now with that, and there's a token involved, and it locks up for a year, and there's all these economics. It feels like a game, even though I don't know if it's really a game so much as it's sort of really just how do you put it? There's rules and there's DeFi and there's staking and a bunch of things involved. I don't know if I call it a game, but it feels like it. And it's just kind of interesting. Like I think, and this does relate to the next question here, how do you look at what will be built on Zilliqa? And, this is a question about ZillHive grants from Tony Merlo on YouTube. He says, how are things looking for the next cohort of ZillHive grants? I guess, how do you look at, what's going to be built on Zilliqa and what do you get to be huge on Zilliqa? Like I look at say XCAD, which has the largest market cap. Lunar has the most transaction volume and holders on the entire network. Like how do you attract and get those next big projects, and how do you look at that?
Yeah, I think there's different ways to do that. Do you kind of partner? I don't know. We've obviously got ZillHive doing that. Do you partner with a Brink or these other ones to kind of drive some additional incubator programs? Again, from a Zilliqa standpoint, we're going to be more aggressive in terms of, I guess, investing in more projects building on Zilliqa. So I think from a ZillHive grants perspective, the process is there. It's quite straightforward in terms of applying for a grant. If there's a user case that makes sense that we buy into, then grants are awarded. It's a pretty straightforward process. And I think just ramping up in terms of some of the areas that we're focused in that complements the message that we're kind of delivering on is an important part. And again, if there's kind of areas that looks like there's kind of gaps that kind of need to be filled in terms of what we've got in our ecosystem, again, it probably makes it a lot easier to get a grant. So there is money there. Get in touch. Let us know what your project is, and let's see if we can do something together.
And in fact, if you have an idea for a project, so a lot of people like to talk, but if you want to walk the walk, there's a lot. I believe it's going to be rolled out in May. So the next wave of projects. So if somebody is interested to build on Zilliqa, and I usually say, do get involved. Don't just be. It's easy to be armchair general, but I would say everyone, if you want to get involved, get into the conversation. Go to ZillHive.org and check it out. And
there's another vehicle that we're going to be launching, whereby it's kind of a Web3 partner line. So we've already got a few people on board who are bringing deal flow or projects onto Zilliqa. So again, that's going to be an initiative that's going to come out in the next month or so. So if you're a Web3, I guess, aficionado, you know where the good projects are. You want to bring the best and the newest projects to Zilliqa. It's going to be a good opportunity for you. So yeah, there's exciting things ahead. Yeah. And I think just on top of that as well, from some of the hiring as well that we're doing, we've got a new investor relations chap who's joined. He's kind of out of London as well, so kind of supporting the ZillHive team. But again, in terms of when you think about where's Zilliqa going, in terms of maybe raising more capital to do more bigger investments in projects, that has to be an ambition that we've got this year. And naturally, with VC attachment and everything else, again, awareness grows. So yeah, a lot of changes, a lot of exciting things happening. And I think, I can't see where we end up by the end of the year.
Lots of cooking.
Exciting. Norman?
No, so this is great, guys. I mean, I think one of the things that we talked a lot about opportunities in general, but on a bigger scale, how big is the market opportunity for Zilliqa right now? What do you guys foresee? I know it's a big question.
I think, well, from a Zilliqa specifically, obviously every project like yourselves, you understand what the opportunity is for you guys in terms of what you're kind of building out. And I don't know how that looks in 5-10 years, what that exit is. Maybe Elon buys you out. I don't know. Hopefully that's an outcome you always get. But from a Zilliqa standpoint, if you look at the kind of the metaverse play, I think the Prime Minister of Finland was talking about Metapolis and Facebook in the same sentence in terms of the soft power that these sorts of projects have now in comparison to countries and states. Massive market. Gaming, you just have to look at the numbers and the amount of investment that's taking place in gaming. Again, massive opportunity. And then coming back to what we're doing from a DeFi standpoint and the influx of money into that, I think, I don't even know the numbers that are there, but it's significant. And Zilliqa's part of it. We're part of the narrative. And yeah, we're going to take a market share of that. And I think the good thing is there's multiple blockchains doing a lot of good things. It's kind of raising all boats. So I think there's opportunity for everyone, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the Zilliqa definitely has technology and drive and projects to be in the lead projects. So it's really not, we'll see what number it will be, but the reality is that the Zilliqa has the potential, and we are here to activate and unleash the potential to be there, because we're scalable, fast. We got awesome stuff in a pipeline that is not just. This is different. We're not trying to compete with everybody on their own terms. We're really building out, elements both in gaming and metaverse that is not done, and so and that's where we really leveraging.
I still think, and I still think a lot of it comes back to the people relationships and how you build that out. We've got people in the community helping bring projects. I don't know, Max can tell you is obviously out there doing a massive job, kind of bringing some great projects. I don't know, XCAD, Token Tracks, Metapolis. These are projects that kind of he's bought. So we've got people who can bring big projects onto Zilliqa. We've obviously now got these kind of relationships into esports. By factor of that, friends with the CEO, different places, he's giving us introductions to some big gaming studios and everything else. So I think the breadth and reach of what Zilliqa's starting to kind of build out is really exciting. And that's why when people ask, what have you been up to for the last 3-4 months? I've probably been spending 6-7 hours a day interviewing people, because the key component of this is, can you get the right people into the business to help you scale? We've got the technology. It comes down to the people, the contacts, the relationships. And if you get that right, then you're going to be successful. And that's no different in any business. If you get that right.
Yeah. So what does that look like? I mean, how big are you guys looking to grow right now in terms of headcount?
Yeah, if you look at the likes of Near at the moment, they're probably sitting about 100 people. We're probably about the 55, 60 mark. I think if you look at the kind of the stats, we're probably a similar play to them. So again, probably scale to that. But again, it comes back to, what are we kind of trying to deliver?
Right.
What are we going to build that, I guess, bootstraps or helps bootstrap the community to drive that awareness, that marketing. And then hopefully as a function of that, we can start to kind of attract projects who've got their own marketing, have got their own sales, have got their own community. And by virtue of that, you don't have to scale to the 100, 200, 300, 400, because then it becomes difficult, but who knows?
Right. I have a question around, the polarization of the community. You've got people out there that could not be more supportive, and they're out there, fighting for the Zilliqa brand all day long, every day, consistently. And that's how they end up on our influencer list too. And what they're saying is getting a lot of engagement. And then you've got this other side of trolls. And I don't understand. I still, to this date, we see it all day long. But why do you think there's so many trolls out there hoping you fail, calling out random things that aren't true, saying you haven't been doing this and haven't been doing that? And really what they're actually saying is, you haven't made me a millionaire today in less than 12 hours.
Yeah. And I think
why so many trolls?
I think a lot of it comes back to what the price is. I think obviously a reflection of the price dictates how many death threats you probably get that week. So a function of what we need to kind of do, and from what I'd say to any troll, is we are working long hours behind the scenes, and not in a kind of a way that's not efficient. We're trying to bring the big projects. We're trying to kind of raise capital to then invest in different projects. We've looked at the marketing. We're kind of addressing that. We're kind of sorting out the DeFi. We're kind of creating new verticals. So I think from a perspective, I get it. I want the price to go up. We all want the price to go up. We're banging our head as much as everyone else for the price to go up. But I think if you trust in what we're trying to achieve, we've got a clear strategy in terms of what we're looking to do. I think you just need to kind of trust in that. And there's open access to the community with Tiago, with Alexander, in terms of the voice, what they feel that we should be doing, we're not doing well enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's got a lens, and yeah, we can't please everyone, I'm afraid.
I think right now we're in the transformation element, right? So when people set out, maybe they were with Zilliqa for a while, there is going to be different emotions. It might have been, if the entire market is down, Zilliqa is down too. That also, there is alignment there too. So, and we have to, I think the big part for us is to separate price from actually what has been happening. And in Zilliqa, there has been a very strong new direction in various verticals, and which we mentioned on the show. So so trolls will always be there, and ultimately we don't want to discount anybody. So we're always taking a consideration into the feedback, but ultimately everybody right now have to relax a little bit, because there is a new team just coming in. We really, in the last few months, there was probably 10, 15, 20 people brought on board. It's significant. Yeah.
But I just think behind that as well, though, obviously for the last 7-8 months, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that we were building, putting in place. As you know, nothing happens overnight. You've got to actually work. You've got to do the hard yards. You've got to build product relationships, strike deals, and everything else. So we are working towards a plan. I think we've got kind of scale now in terms of the number of people and everything else. So I think it's just going to be onwards from here. And yeah, if we can start to get some use cases with the esports teams, we kind of do a lot more in gaming. We get more bridges, we get better wallets, we get more TVL. By virtue of all that, hopefully at some stage we will please the trolls.
And then they'll want more, and then more.
And then there's going to be future trolls, but that's a different conversation.
I think in life and that's the whole thing about community. You can't please everyone, and it is good to get feedback. You're not doing X, Y, and Z, and if you don't listen to feedback, you'll never improve. And I'm sure that from kind of what you do with training your models and everything else, that's a big component of it. We do listen, we do understand it. We are human beings. We do take it on board, and we just try as a business to do the best we can. So
that's why.
So on that note of being humans, one last question for you, since I know we're over time. We told you an hour, and we've done 84 minutes. I think we could probably go another 84. What interests do you have outside of crypto, and how do you stay sane in this crazy environment?
So from my perspective, I used to absolutely love kite surfing. So I've now got 2 young kids. Those days for a couple of years have probably gone. So kite surfing and maybe a bit of golf is probably my go-tos.
Yeah, for me, martial arts. So I did it for many years and still do it once in a while. So it's it's good to keep body and mind sharp.
Although I did surprise the wife the other week when I had a bit of a part of the day, and I did manage to do the caterpillar. So the days of being able to kind of bust a few moves on the dance floor, I've still got it.
It's dancing.
So Matt, are you proposing that you're going to angle your camera right now on the ground?
You boys are coming to London, I think, in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
So I'll show you that little move in a couple of
Beautiful. I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there next Friday, all weekend for the Coin Bureau conference that we're headlining, and should be fun. I think we've got Norman on stage with Ben too, so that should be a pretty cool time.
To having you guys in London town, we'll definitely take you out for a few beers.
Super
Beautiful.
excited. Norman, the question applies to you too. How do you stay healthy?
How do I stay healthy? Oh my God. Oh my God.
Is that even
I mean,
possible in crypto?
well, yeah, you just have to, it's like you have to find a balance. Like everything is about balance, right? So the speed in which crypto operates, you have to counterbalance it with the speed in which you optimize, right? So from like intermittent fasting to high interval training to consistent exercise to keeping sound in mind to meditation. I mean, it's like anything and everything just thrown at it. So my world is a combination of all those things, coupled with the fact that I live 6 minutes from the beach,
I was going to say, John, you got the surfboards in the back as well, so I'm presuming you're a little bit of a surf dude, are you?
Yeah, I'm at the beach here in Southern California, and so go surfing, probably go to the gym and quite a lot, and run around here and kind of do some, like, I guess, just strength training outside and things. But and also Peloton, riding the bike and doing yoga and things. So I think it's kind of similar to Norman. We're pretty similar age, kind of mixing it up. Don't just do one thing. As you can in the middle of a 24/7, 365 business that we're running. So it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's very important. So with that, what would you guys like to leave us with today?
I'll say that I'm excited to be here. This is, pretty still. Zilliqa is from the get-go was a very interesting brand to me. I really like the technology behind it. I like the team. I like what we're building. So it was. I'm excited to really, unlock a lot of the stuff that I believe Zilliqa can be, and it's already is, by the way. Zilliqa is significant, but I think we can be so much more. And so I'm happy to be part of it and build a team to allow us to hit the future. I don't want to say the moon, but hit the the sky. Yes.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, just delivering on the ambition and the plans that we've got. I think if we just keep our head down, keep doing that, I think we're going to have a really successful couple of years. So that's probably my main focus, and maybe try and get a gym membership where I could learn to do some yoga, because it's been a while.
Love it. Well, thank you guys. So appreciate your visit here to Lunar Crush Live, and I can't wait to do it again. To those that had questions answered, we will reach out and take care of that for you. And with that, we will sign off. And thanks again, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.